I find today that as a society, and particularly in some of the social groups that I'm a part of, there's a high value for personal development and bettering ourselves to be more of who we are. Maybe there's like a consciousness shift going on around the planet. I don't know. Maybe it's just who I spend time with. Do you believe that everyone should start learning about personal development, and why do you think it's so important today, particularly?
Well, I'm going to take the word personal development. I'm going to call it evolution, because to personally develop, you have to evolve.
Yeah.
And I believe that every human being's already doing that. We've been doing it since the start of time, and we'll do it till the end of time. It's not something that we've ever done or not done. We just have a name now for that field,
Right.
personal development field. There's no human being that doesn't want to master all 7 areas of their life. So this is semi-touching on what we spoke about earlier. If we do not set goals that inspire us enough, we get bored and we look for quick fixes. So what are we looking to do? We're looking to evolve. And we've found a certain level of evolution in our lives, we get bored. And generally when we're getting bored, that's usually when we look for quick fixes, which ends up with cell entropy. We start actually killing ourselves internally. We feel empty. So every human being on planet Earth is naturally looking to evolve, and we're looking to evolve in all 7 areas. And any time that we do not evolve in a certain area to a degree and we neglect it, eventually we build up enough of a void to value that area. So I worked with a gentleman who had said to me, well, I remember when I was killing it in business. So he was really building himself and puffing himself up. When I was killing it in business, my life was really good then. And I said to him, you'll never build up an area of your life if I'm putting down another area. He said, no, I remember life was pretty perfect. And I said, well, my certainty is much greater than your doubt, so let's look deeper into this. I want you to go back to that time. And he closed his eyes and he went back to that time. And I said, so where were you building yourself up? And he said, business. I was making a large amount of money. And growing up from a family that didn't have a lot of money, that was of high value to him. I said, excellent. Now, where were you not managing in your life? And he kind of sunk a little bit because it instantaneously came to him. And he said, that was when I had the worst out of my physiology and the way that I was expressing it. And he had a list of medical conditions that he had been labeled with. Right. And I said, so when you exaggerated your work and you were spending time and really going into that, were you not physically mastering your body, exercising and doing those things? And he's a wrestler, so this guy is used to extreme exercise. And he said, yeah, actually I was. And I said, and you were mastering finances, but were you doing what you love? He goes, no, I didn't actually appreciate my job. So I said, so that's a vocation, meaning your career path now, you weren't appreciating that. I said, what were you like with your girlfriend and family? He goes, well, I wasn't really connecting with her. I was so much in my own head. I said, can you see that you had an extreme in one and you had a void in the other? He said, yes. I said, what happened after that? Because he came and did a consult with me in Sydney. It was a very interesting consult. I had about 2 hours in between a seminar that I was attending and having dinner with my girlfriend, and we were in a foyer. Now, I remember when he messaged me to inquire, I said, I have to be honest with you, this is like the only 2 hours. Of anyone that knows my schedule, I like to book back to back to back and like 2 weeks in advance. Yeah. And he said, I'll take it. I said, this is in a foyer, just so I let you know. But I've got a higher value in working than anything else. I said, I don't mind, I've worked on planes with people before. He said, that's fine. So he came, he saw me, we did 2 hours worth of work, completely transformed his perceptions. He realized what was going on, transformed his physiology. This particular client had not eaten properly for weeks. He had stopped socializing because of all the stuff going on in his head that was occupying time and space. So I only had 2 hours. So I said to him, let's pick the biggest charge, work on that, clear that, next biggest charge, and we went through it. First one was an association with a partner, cleared out in some infatuations. You could see his physiology start to relax. His shoulders went down. He went, oh, okay, that's not what I thought it was. Then the next one was a charge towards a particular boss that he had at work or a manager, and the way that he felt they had a lot of power over him. So we showed him where he had power in his life that she didn't, and it was equally to the same degree. He was a wrestler. So he had a vast amount of power in a way that she couldn't even do. She didn't have it in that form. And when we showed him where that was in his life today and how he earned that power and how he was a master in that area, and he had been comparing himself to her, I think we went a half an hour over. I got it done. My girlfriend diligently waited, which was quite nice. Then once he left and went, he messaged me the next day and said, I went and ate, and I called some friends and I socialized. I hadn't done that for months. My mind felt clearer. So he started taking action and getting results in his life. So from that point onwards, he actually had a high value and started looking after his health and his personal development in all the areas that he had neglected. And now he was looking to rebuild that business. So before he had one and was sacrificing 6. Now he's building the 6 and he's learning how to manage the 1. So I said to him, can you see that there's always an evolution going on there, and regardless of how you try and manage all of these, even if you acquire a goal, what happens when you acquire a goal? You look to acquire the next goal in that area and the next sphere of awareness. This is intrinsic and is spoken about in Emerson's Essays About Circles, if you want to Google that, and he talks about the mind. Once it's honed into a greater sphere of thinking, it no longer wants to go back to a smaller sphere.
Right.
And we're here not to shrink, but to expand to ever greater spheres of awareness, to realize our true potential in all 7 areas and what we're here to do. So when it comes to what some people are calling personal development, I want to call that myth out and say it's evolution, and there is not one human being watching this that doesn't want to evolve and master all 7 areas. So that is intrinsic. It's the one thing all human beings have. And it's the one thing we're looking to do. We may just have some areas. Now, in terms of improving yourself, I don't actually promote that. I don't think you need any improvement. I believe what you need to do is learn, or what it would be wise to do, it's greater to say, so I don't project my values onto you, it would be wise to see how you have every human trait, anti-trait, and action that you see in others, so that you could go out and master your life and see that you're perfect just the way that you are, and see how everything that you have is a benefit and service and drawback and disservice to you. So you're not infatuating and resenting over yourself, but you're loving yourself. And you can never love yourself, and I consider love to be both sides. So once again, this is DeMartini theory for those of you that are looking to really advance this. You can get in contact with me or have a look at John's work, which really promotes it. But to really love something, an unconditional love, is having no conditions. To have no conditions, you have to have both sides, positive and negative, and see the balance in both. They're both a benefit and a service and a drawback and disservice. So in order to really love ourselves and realize that we don't need to improve anything, we need to first have a look at all our dark parts and actually work on those. And all the parts that we infatuate over and consider to be extremely positive, and bring those down so that we can learn how to love those.
Yeah, well, they say you can, no matter how thinly you slice something, there's always going to be 2 sides.
So there's going to be 2 sides.
And, and one of the questions was, how do you create more balance, or how do you create more love in your life and things like this? But I think what you're saying is that we have it right now. We just have these crazy perceptions that we don't have it. So anything that we really, really want in life, or we're desiring, is already within us.
It's already
right
within
now.
you. Yeah. And there are laws of the universe that govern the universe, called universal laws. They're laws of energy. And one of them states that energy cannot be created, killed, and we don't know where it comes from.
Right.
And if everything in this universe is made out of energy, including us, including the camera equipment, our clothes, and everything else, then there is only ever transformation. There is never a death. There is never life without death. There's always 2 sides and a transformation. So every beginning of one thing is the end of another. Therefore, everything that you perceive you don't have is transformed as form. You're just not aware of the form in which it's in. Yesterday, I worked with the gentleman that I was telling you about on his last consult. We were mastering side C of the DeMartini method form, which is for perceptions of loss and gain. And he was asking me, what's the relevance of this? Why are we learning this? And I said, well, that's a great question. Usually I start off by explaining the relevance, and then we get into the work. And I said to him, if you perceive that you lost something, do you ever feel low and down and out? He said, yeah, I do. And I said, when you perceive you gained something, do you ever feel elated and you puff yourself up? He said, yes. And I said, every time that you put something on a pedestal, you don't realize the drawbacks. And every time you put something in a pit, you're not realizing the benefit and the service of it. So that's not going to allow you to master your life. Because if you walk around only covering half of the world, you'll only ever see half of the world. But the master realizes that both are always going to continually happen. You'll attract both. So you may as well learn how to master both and see how they serve you. So we went through, and I said, what is something that you perceive to be missing? And we worked for a while because he didn't really find a lot that he perceived to be missing in his life. But he said, a previous partner and her affection. So we got really clear about that. I said, what do you consider to be her affection? He said, text messages and physical affection. I said, excellent. And I said, so where is that now in your life since she was gone? Since you perceived that she's no longer in your life? And at first, it was unconscious or subconscious.
It's hard to see that.
To the side. Because we have what we're consciously aware of, and then what we're unconsciously aware of. So you're talking to me now, but unconsciously behind the scenes, you're also running your heart and all of those things. And the subconscious is where you're storing all imbalanced perceptions. I hope so as well. It'd be make it hard to do this interview. So he had what he was consciously aware of, but then what he was subconsciously storing. So as I asked him, and I said, who's messaging you? I'm not asking you if it's there, I'm asking you who is, and where is it? And he started to think, and he goes, Mum and Dad. And he goes, actually, this friend and this friend and this friend, and actually these 3 friends ever since she left. And I said, can you see that you replaced the time with her with those people? He said, yes. And I said, and when you were with her? He goes, well, I didn't, because I was investing into her. And I said, excellent. And we did the same with the physical affection, and we got really clear until the quantity was exactly the same. He said, well, her was about this many hours during the day, but now it's between these people during those amount of hours.
Interesting.
And once he saw that, we said, okay, so what's the benefit of the new form? What's the drawback of the old form? Because he still had a feeling that, well, if it's with a partner, it's better. But he realized he was sacrificing so much of himself. He would feel bad when he didn't call her, and she would run guilt trips, and he was minimizing one of his 5 values, which is his body. The minute that she left, he said, I'm never having that happen again. He went out, started working on his body, increased, started doing photo shoots and connecting with all the people that he previously had not connected with. So in her, he had the benefit of one form and a partner. But with this new form, he was more connected to his parents and doing what he loved, and he was building himself up for a new relationship. So when he saw both, he said thank you to both. And that opened up the mind and the heart for gratitude and love, which his physiology completely changed. You could hear it in his voice.
This feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good to know that, all is divine at all times.
Yeah.
It's crazy.